All right, we're getting some breaking news from Pakistan. Pakistan has moved a resolution condemning the hanging of Afzal Guru. Remember, Afzal Guru was convicted and then hanged in a case related to the attack on the Indian Parliament. And now what we're hearing is that Pakistan has condemned the hanging of Afzal Guru. There's a resolution that has been passed. Pakistan Parliament, in fact, has passed that resolution on Afzal Guru and has also said in the resolution that the body of Afzal Guru be returned to his family. Gaurav Sawant, our Strategic Affairs Editor, now joins us with more details. Gaurav, this is almost like admitting that Pakistan was involved in that attack in Parliament.
This is a case of direct interference by the Pakistani state in India's internal matters. This is a case where Pakistan's parliament has unanimously passed a resolution. This was a resolution that was moved by the Jamiat Ulema-e-Islam chief Maulana Fazlur Rehman just 2 days for Pakistan's National Assembly to complete its 5-year tenure, and they passed a resolution saying Afzal Guru's body should be handed back to his family. They condemn Afzal Guru's hanging, and let me quickly bring in Major General G.D. Bakshi, a strategic affairs analyst, for more on this. General, is this not a direct example of Pakistan interfering in India's internal matters?
I think it is a blatant and uncalled for interference in India's internal affairs. It is absolutely, it is absolutely sacrilegious. And as you very rightly pointed out, it shows up Pakistan's complicity in this attack.
Yes.
It is the Pakistani ISI and their minions of the Jaish-e-Mohammed which had launched this attack on the Indian Parliament, the sovereign institution of our republic, and in which so many people had been killed, so many of our boys had been killed in trying to defend it. It could have been much worse. It could have wiped out a large part of our political leadership. Now, this is an attack which almost amounts to an act of war. And for Pakistan's parliament to own up to this is sacrilegious. And I think we should not let it rest there.
Yes. Yes, why should Pakistan interfere in India's internal matters, General Bakshi? What should India's response be at this stage? Just last week, we rolled out the red carpet for the man you see on your television screen, Raja Parvez Ashraf, Pakistan's outgoing Prime Minister. And this is how they pay us back. This is what they do. We help them in his ziyarat, and this is what they do to us. Pass a resolution in the National Assembly condemning the hanging of a terrorist in this country. How should India now respond to Pakistan?
Pakistan is a clear violation of the United Nations resolution, which, call upon all states to, fight terrorism. Instead of fighting terrorism, Pakistan is an acknowledged sponsor of terrorism. What I think we should do right now and right here is to stop all this nonsensical peace process that we have been trying to get ourselves involved in a most shameless manner, even at the cost of the lives of our citizens, and our citizens continue to get killed. I think it is about the limit of our forbearance and tolerance should be reached. There is some threshold of tolerance that we should show, and such blatant interference must be nipped in the bud. We should show our firm response by, at the very least, stopping forthwith all talk of, peace and dialogue with Pakistan. And should Pakistan not behave, not take the hint, we should call upon it to cease interference in India's internal affairs. Don't forget the fact, when Rehman Malik had come to Delhi, he had taken that podium to talk on the Babri Masjid, past most irrelevant and uncalled for remarks on the Babri Masjid.
Absolutely, absolutely. And where is our diplomacy going wrong, General? Because Pakistan repeatedly rakes up these issues, rakes up issues of India's internal affairs, whether it's the Babri Masjid in Rehman Malik's case, as you rightly pointed out, or in the case of Pakistan's National Assembly. This is Pakistan's parliament, which passes a unanimous resolution condemning the hanging of Afzal Guru, also saying that his body should be handed back to the family, also saying that the international community should not take this matter lying down. The international community should put pressure on India. Now, why is it that when their Prime Minister comes to India for ziyarat, we don't even raise the terror issue? Terror that continues from Pakistan day in and day out, including yesterday in Bemina in Srinagar. We don't raise any of these issues, and Pakistan continues to dare us day in and day out. How should India deal with the situation, General?
You see, the pity is that here is the case of a nation whose citizens are being killed, whose soldiers are being beheaded. Every time such an incident happens, there is national outrage. There is public outrage in India. But the Indian government seems to be increasingly impervious in a democracy to the feelings and strong feelings of its own citizenry. It is this that must stop. The Indian government must, their policies must be more in tune with the will of the people, with the feelings of the population of India. The population of India is no longer willing to be, absolutely supine victims to Pakistani attacks of terrorism. And I think it is about time that we should now have a total chill in our diplomatic relations,
Yes.
total frost. We should show, we should be palpable. And thereafter, if Pakistan still persists, we should take concrete measures to raise costs for Pakistan.
Indeed, indeed. Now, our diplomacy somewhere down the line, is it that our diplomats, and let me, General, stay on with me. Headlines today is Maha Siddiqui, our diplomatic affairs correspondent, is also with me, and let me put this question to her. Maha, is there a disconnect in what our diplomats want and what the political leadership of this country wants? The political leadership of this country rolls out the red carpet for Pakistani political leadership. This is how Pakistan pays us back. Our political leadership, are they not taking sound professional advice from our diplomats when they say let there be a cooling off period when tensions with Pakistan are so high, Maha?
Well, absolutely, Gaurav. And when Pakistan Prime Minister wanted to come and perform a ziyarat here at Ajmer, there were people and our sources telling us that that advice was given to the Indian government, to the political leadership really, that that sort of a treatment should not be given to the Pakistan Prime Minister, especially considering that one of the soldiers at the line of control, an Indian soldier, was beheaded. And after that, we've seen the Indian political leadership still going ahead and helping the Pakistan Prime Minister not just perform his ziyarat but also holding a lunch for him in Jaipur. And this is the kind of return that we are seeing from Pakistan. This is how they reciprocate. First of all, as you pointed out there, yesterday's brazen and daring attack in Srinagar, an attack on the CRPF camp in Srinagar, in which there is a clear Pakistan hand that is visible now. And today, this resolution from Pakistan clearly meddling in India's affairs. Nothing more brazen than this coming to India after the generosity that was shown to Pakistan. Gaurav?
Diplomats don't want that. You cover that beat. You've been speaking to a number of diplomats. They are very uncomfortable, are they, with the kind of directions they are getting from the higher political leadership? Is there a disconnect between our diplomats and the political leadership guiding this Pakistan policy?
Gaurav, if you are asking me, I'd like to state that the primary disconnect
Yes.
is between the people and the politicians of our country, who seem to have their own pet agendas and hobby horses, which they are willing to pursue to amazing degrees of obstinacy, even in the face of clear evidence that the Pakistani civilian
Yes.
establishment is in no position to deliver peace.
That's a
That they
fair
are
point
just,
you're making.
putting
That's
up
a fair
facade
point you're making.
of
This
friendship.
is Pakistani political leadership is in no position to deliver peace, and yet they go ahead. Are they taunting India? And let me put that question to Lieutenant General Shankar Prasad, former Director General Infantry. General Shankar Prasad, what do you make of this resolution that has unanimously been passed by Pakistan's National Assembly condemning the hanging of Afzal Guru, demanding that his body be handed back to his family, and asking the international community to put pressure on India on Kashmir? What do you make of this, sir? General Shankar Prasad.
Hello.
General Shankar Prasad, can you hear me? I seem to have lost that line with General Shankar Prasad. General Jeet Bakshi with me, but let me once again come back to Maha Siddiqui. Maha, is there a disconnect between our diplomats and the political leadership that's guiding the Pakistan policy?
Well, clearly, Gaurav, there is a clear disconnect here. From the time that Asif Ali Zardari wanted to come to Ajmer, there was there was a stated line by the officials, is what we understand through our sources. They did not want that tour of Asif Ali Zardari to be extended to Delhi, but it was the Prime Minister himself hosted Asif Ali Zardari. After that, we've seen another lunch being hosted for the Pakistan Prime Minister, and that too just after the beheading of an Indian soldier at the LOC. This time again, we learned from our sources that the officials were not keen that this sort of a welcome be accorded to the Pakistan Prime Minister, especially considering the fact that he is politically a weak person in Pakistan,
Yes.
and that he was also demitting office after some time. Clearly, there was no need really to engage with him. But we saw that the Indian government went ahead with that. Clearly, a very political decision there.
A
Something
political
that the
decision
officials were not keen
Indeed,
on.
and let me put that question to BJP's Kirti Azad. Is this Pakistan interfering, and is this blatant interfering with India's internal matters, Kirti Azad?
Well, I'm not really able to hear you that loudly, but I know the kind of resolution that has passed. Once again, it has challenged India, its sovereignty, and the highest court of this country. And the most unfortunate part is that we have actually proven up all this act that has taken place and the resolution passed on Afzal Guru that we are not only a soft state but a coward state as well.
What is it that India needs to do as the opposition party? Will you mount pressure on the government to perhaps now have major mid-course correction?
Well, simple as you could see the kind of information that was being given by the Honorable Home Minister was already there on your channel and all newspapers today.
Yes.
We read everything. Nothing new was given except for a new fact that has come out that there was a meeting where Hafiz Saeed along with the Salahuddin and others had a meeting on the 15th of February intercepted by the Ministry of Defense. And they never talked with the Ministry of Home. Had they been given this kind of an information, I'm sure the kind of thing that happened yesterday, the dastardly act, the cowardly act by the terrorists sponsored by Pakistan would not happen. So now the situation is that we're sitting with a lame government which has no guts, has no teeth, it's useless, and that's all that I can say.
Okay, what is it that needs to be done? What would your advice to the political leadership of India be at this stage with Pakistan's blatant interference in India's internal affairs, Mr. Kirti Azad?
Have to take things very seriously. You don't have to make people sit and have them have biryani in Rajasthan when they go and meet the Ajmer Sharif. I mean, you have to give a very strong statement. You have to talk into international forums and tell them that it's enough is enough. I mean, Pakistan couldn't even speak a single word when they came in. They went to Abbottabad. They went and picked up Osama bin Laden. They killed him there, took him back, and put him in the sea. And they couldn't even utter a word. And this is the kind of an attitude they have towards India, where they can do anything, pass resolution in their lower house, and make merry.
Yes. Kirti Azad, for the moment, many thanks for joining me. Let me bring in our Deputy Editor Defense, Shiv Arur, for more on this story. Shiv, you've been speaking to the strategic community. The strategic community is alarmed with the way government of India appears to be bending over backwards, placating Pakistan, and one after the other, Pakistan daring India, taunting India. What is the reaction to this latest dare from Pakistan's National Assembly?
Well, Gaurav, there have been no official reactions just yet, but we're expecting to get those reactions in just a short while from now. What I can tell you for sure is that there will be a very studied response from the Foreign Office, even gravest of provocations that we've seen from the political establishment of Pakistan have been have been responded to in not a very solid manner by the Indian establishment so far. We've seen the Foreign Office say things like the primacy and the dignity of the Indian establishment will be the main priority. We will study the resolution before making a measured reaction. That's the sort of bureaucratic nonsense that we'll probably hear from the government before a reaction is actually formulated. So at this time, it's still early minutes because we've just broken the news about the resolution being passed by the Pakistan Parliament. But I can tell you for sure that it will be a long time before a solid response is made. And that is, of course, depending on whether the Indian government actually chooses to recognize and sort of give attention to what has happened inside Pakistan Parliament.
Shiv, of course, the strategic community is alarmed by the manner in which government of India is actually dealing with Pakistan, whether it's after the beheading of the Indian soldiers at the line of control, the soldiers of the 13th Battalion of the Rajputana Rifles, or the latest terror attack. India doesn't seem to have a response, an effective response that would deter Pakistan either from pushing in terrorists or daring in our internal matters, Shiv.
That is absolutely correct, and unfortunately, that has been the case for the last at least 7 to 8 years. The strategy, the political, diplomatic, and security strategy in dealing with Pakistan is in a state of a very tragic drift. There has been absolutely no change in the way the government has dealt with not just provocations in terms of diplomatic comments, things said by Pakistani politicians. The latest, this resolution that has been passed in Pakistani Parliament on Afzal Guru, but even like you mentioned just now, military acts like what happened along the line of control in January and February. The reactions have been extremely cold, extremely measured. Even at times when the Indian government could have shown a reasonable amount of indignation, it has not. It has chosen not to actually do so. It has been, sort of clinically measured, clinically soft on Pakistan as far as all of this is concerned. And like you rightly pointed out, the man in the pictures that we were showing our viewers just now, right after that resolution was passed in Pakistan, let's never forget, was here less than a week ago, right here on Indian soil, being fed at this official lunch by the Indian External Affairs Minister, right after which he was taken by helicopter to Ajmer, where he visited the Dargah there. So at the end of the day, if things haven't changed in the last 6 to 7 years, despite there being consistent pressure internally, politically, from the opposition, within parliament, in the media, I don't see how things are actually going to change. And remember, all of this is, of course, contingent on the Indian government even recognizing that this is an affront from Pakistan.
Okay, stay on with me, Shiv. Maha, why this desperation to stay engaged with Pakistan despite 26/11, despite the attacks that took place subsequently in Mumbai, in Pune, the terrorist attacks across this country, the beheading of the soldiers in Jammu and Kashmir, the latest terror attack in Bemina? Why this desperation to stay engaged with Pakistan? Why can't we treat Pakistan with the contempt that country deserves?
Well, Gaurav, the standard line that the Indian government takes and has always taken with regard to Pakistan is the fact that it's a neighbor. We cannot choose our neighbor, and therefore this constant need to engage in a dialogue. However, there have been constant frictions about this standard line that India adopts, because there are experts who feel that when a country wrongs you, you have to take a stern line to give them the message that you will not take any sort of nonsense from them. And this has been happening over decades now. The kind of animosity that Pakistan has been throwing at India from terrorism, the terror havens exist, they give shelter to terrorists, and that is something that India has even provided dossier to Pakistan on the 26/11 attacks, and Pakistan has done precious little about it. In fact, at one point in time, dismissing it as mere literature. Despite that, there are experts who feel that the soft line that India continues to take with regards to Pakistan will not help India. India, on the other hand, tries to be extremely magnanimous. At one point after 2011, saying first that there will be no composite dialogue between the two countries.
Okay, stay on with me, Maha. This big story that we're breaking here on headlines today. A blatant example of Pakistan interfering with in India's internal affairs. Pakistan's parliament has passed a resolution condemning the hanging of Afzal Guru. Pakistan's parliament has also demanded the return of Afzal Guru's body to his family. In just 2 days, in 2 days from now, Pakistan's National Assembly completes its 5-year term. This resolution was moved by Jamiat Ulema-e-Islam's chief, Maulana Fazlur Rehman. They're concerned, they say, by the situation now in Jammu and Kashmir, and they've asked the international community not to remain silent. Shiv, what business does Pakistan have to interfere in India's internal matters? And India perhaps this time needs to give a fitting reply to Pakistan, and not the kind of responses we've heard from the government so far, that you can't choose your neighbors. We can well choose to ignore our neighbors who spread terror in our country.
Well, we can choose to ignore it, and that is perhaps something that the Indian government could possibly do. But given the track record of the manner in which the government has actually reacted to provocations almost identical to this one in the last 6 to 7 years by Pakistan, Gaurav, it appears quite unlikely that any of us would expect a solid response, or even a sardonic or sarcastic response to Pakistan about what business it really has meddling so directly in Indian affairs. Far from it, considering this obsession with remaining engaged in a meaningful manner with Pakistan, the sort of alacrity with which this establishment rolls out the red carpet and jumps to engage with Pakistan, despite not only the national mood but the very direct evidence of the country's funding and direct involvement in terror against India. Most recently, what happened yesterday morning in Srinagar, means that nobody should really expect any measure of indignation from India as far as what Pakistan has just done is concerned, because even the Prime Minister, who on the odd occasion sounds harsh, he has even gone out on a limb to say it will not be business as usual with Pakistan. I don't think anything that has happened in the last few years, or even the last few weeks for that matter, Gaurav, indicate that things aren't business as usual with Pakistan, because that is pretty much precisely what it is. Now this, what has happened now in Pakistan Parliament, this resolution that has been passed against the hanging of Afzal Guru, is perhaps one of the most direct provocations by the Pakistan Parliament. It remains to be seen if the Indian government will consider this as much more of a provocation than all the others before it put together, and will it accordingly react. I'm not, for some reason, I'm not optimistic at this time.
Yes, and that big question remains, why such a timid response from India each time Pakistan provokes, and each time, because India's response is so timid, Pakistan's dare becomes even greater. Pakistan's provocative meddling, that's our top focus. Should India tolerate Pakistan's meddling on the Afzal Guru episode? Call us at our number 0120-480-7100. Our number is on your television screen. Tell us what you think of it. There is no denying the fact you cannot choose your neighbor, but you can choose to engage or to disengage with a neighbor who spreads terror in your country as part of a state policy, a neighbor that the world calls the terror central of the world. You can choose to ignore such a neighbor. Why is India so desperate to stay engaged with Pakistan? Maha Siddiqui, a foreign affairs correspondent, has been speaking to our sources in the Ministry of External Affairs. Maha, are your sources saying that this was perhaps expected? Pakistan will continue to do this for its domestic audience and we have to live with it? Is this a regular response, and do we have to live with this regular response?
In fact, Gaurav, it was expected that just before elections, this matter, and especially the issue of Kashmir, will be raked up by Pakistan for their own political interest in their country. But Gaurav, let me quickly point out, our correspondent Kamaljeet Sandhu has been sending us this message that the Law Minister has reacted to Pakistan's resolution, and what she says is that the Law Minister has said with regards to the Pakistan National Assembly's demand to return Afzal Guru's body to Kashmir, saying that India is bound by Indian laws. We will act according to our judgment. and according to our laws. But the big question here, Gaurav, remains that the minister has not responded to the fact as to why Pakistan must pass a resolution about Afzal Guru in the first place. It amounts to meddling in India's affairs, and secondly, and most importantly,
let me bring in Sushant Sareen, a strategic affairs analyst. Sushant Sareen, is this not yet another case of Pakistan blatantly interfering in India's internal matters when it passes a resolution condemning the hanging of Afzal Guru and says return the body to the family?
Quite clearly, the Pakistanis are taking ownership for Afzal Guru's actions, and since he was their agent, probably that's the only explanation why they demand his body to be handed back. Thankfully, they're not asking for his body to be handed back to Pakistan, which actually planned the attacks on Parliament. But having said that, yes, you are absolutely right. This is blatant interference. But part of the problem is that we have, in a sense, we have opened the doors for this kind of interference on Pakistanis because we don't tell them where they get off on the issue of Kashmir.
Yes.
And by providing them some kind of a local standard to discuss Kashmir with India, I think this is the nub of the problem. It's about time that we puncture this propaganda on Pakistan's part and we tell them where they get off.
No, and shouldn't we just disengage Pakistan as long as terror continues? Every time we say terror and talks cannot happen simultaneously, whether it was 26/11 or post 26/11, terror continues, Sushant Sareen, and we continue to talk. Why this desperation to stay engaged with Pakistan in our political leadership? What do you make of it?
Look, what you're alluding to is this obsession among Indian leadership, especially among successive Indian prime ministers, to go down in history as being the people who have, or being the person who has actually, normalized relations with Pakistan. And this is not only a malady which this current prime minister suffers, successive prime ministers have suffered this malady.
Yes.
But having said that, the problem really is that while I don't have anything against the process of engagement, it is the kind of engagement which we enter into with the Pakistanis,
Yes.
which is a problem. And then, of course, we have this entire brigade of bleeding hearts in India, who take everything at face value and go completely berserk in trying to put pressure upon the Indian government and the Indian state to make certain concessions to Pakistan. That kind of an engagement I'm certainly not in favor of. But,
Okay.
at the political level, even the Americans and the Russians, despite all their problems with each other, continue to stay engaged.
Stay engaged, but don't lower your guard. That's the message that should go from India. Unfortunately, we lower our guard and take it on the chin each time. For the moment, Sushant Sareen, Maha Siddiqui and Shivarur, many thanks for joining me. We'll be tracking this story very, very closely. This is yet another example of Pakistan's blatant interference in India's internal matters. Perhaps this is the time, for once, government of India should give a befitting reply to Pakistan. Stop interfering in India's internal matters. Pakistan has absolutely no business to interfere when it comes to Afzal Guru, when it comes to Jammu and Kashmir. Jammu and Kashmir is an integral part of India, and that's the message that should go to Pakistan. We'll track the story very closely.